The farmer's dog is booked solid every single day, and it is losing money. Not struggling, not tight margins. Losing money. Minus £8,486 in profit before tax in its first 4 months of trading, at a pub where you cannot get a table without booking weeks in advance. Jeremy Clarkson said it himself, sitting across from his accountant, looking genuinely stumped. We're fully booked every day. Couldn't get more people in if we tried. And we're losing. That sentence shouldn't make sense. A business turning people away at the door and still bleeding cash isn't supposed to exist. Full is supposed to mean winning. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why losing money on purpose might be the smartest thing he's done all year. Because the real story isn't the pub at all. It's what the pub is quietly paying for, somewhere you'd never think to look. Here's the figure that starts to explain it. £47,000 a month on car park attendants, not staff, not stock, not rent. Grown adults in high-vis jackets, waving cars into spaces, because the pub got so popular so fast that a farm shop's worth of chaos landed on a building that was never designed to hold it. That's not a business problem. That's a fame problem, wearing a business problem's clothes. Go back to the opening weekend, because this is where the story stops being a spreadsheet and starts being human. Before any of the systems existed to handle what was coming, Clarkson lost 2 waitresses and a pot washer, after one single day. Not because they were lazy, because the lights were still flickering, the kitchen wasn't finished, and the number of people walking through the door had nothing to do with how many the building was built for. Somewhere in that same chaos, Clarkson found himself in a row over patio umbrellas. £40,000 worth of umbrellas, which he refused to buy because the entire refurbishment budget for the outdoor space was $25,000. An umbrella that cost more than the budget meant to cover everything it was supposed to sit under. You're meant to laugh at that, but sit with what it actually tells you. Everyone around the project, from the consultants to the suppliers, was pricing the place like a 5-star resort, because in their heads, that's what fame automatically equals. Clarkson kept saying no, not because he couldn't afford it, because he didn't think the people queuing outside wanted it. Then somebody worked out what the picnic site next to the pub was actually being used for at night. His own words, on camera, to his land agent. It's the perfect site. Now this bloody picnic site of all the damn things. A dogging site. Discovered mid-renovation. Handled quietly, with a few CCTV cameras, before it became the headline instead of a footnote in one. That's the part nobody plans for when they buy a pub. Not the menu, not the beer taps. The absolute avalanche of small, undignified, unglamorous problems that fame drags in behind it. Problems no business plan has a line item for. And here's where it turns, because this next bit is counterintuitive in the way that actually holds up, not the manufactured kind. Stay with me, because this is the detail that makes the whole thing click. Ask most publicans what stolen glassware costs them, and they'll shrug, call it a rounding error, nothing worth mentioning on camera. Clarkson mentioned it anyway. 104 beer glasses, stolen, in one Sunday. 104. From one pub, in one day. That number isn't a symptom of a badly run pub. It's a symptom of a pub that's become somewhere people want a piece of. Nobody steals a souvenir from somewhere forgettable. You don't nick a pint glass from a pub you don't care about. Every one of these, the umbrellas, the walkouts, the parking attendants, the stolen glasses, is the same problem wearing a different coat. Too many people wanting to be there, arriving faster than the business built to receive them. Most pub owners spend entire careers trying to solve the opposite problem, trying to get anyone through the door at all. Clarkson's problem is the rarest one in British hospitality, and it's still, technically, a loss on the balance sheet. That's worth sitting with if you've ever built something that started working faster than you were ready for. A launch that went better than the plan and somehow still felt like drowning. A waiting list you didn't know how to be grateful for yet. That has a name in business now, and it isn't failure. It's growing pains with an audience watching. When his accountant floated the obvious fix, raised the prices, Clarkson pushed back. He'd gone and checked what every other pub in the area was charging. His menu, entirely British produce, sourced properly, was already the cheapest around. Read that twice. The pub losing money is, by his own comparison, undercharging relative to its competitors. He's choosing to run at a loss rather than charge what the market would clearly bear. If you more story want, so subscribe for more informative video, and comment below how type of you want story about Jeremy Clarkson in Soil Vanta channel, and hit also the bell icon must for repetitive information video. Most people watching that scene assume it's stubbornness. It's worth asking whether it's something closer to strategy, because if you zoom out from the pub to everything sitting around it, the pattern gets a lot harder to call an accident. Rewind to 2020, before any of this, before the pub, before the queues down the road for the farm shop, back to a much smaller, much less glamorous problem. Clarkson brought in his first proper barley harvest from Diddlysquat and discovered nobody wanted it. The big maltsters weren't interested. The grain merchants offered prices that barely covered the diesel it took to grow it. A perfectly good crop, and no buyer worth the name. That's not a TV moment. That's the exact quiet failure that ends careers in British farming every year, the kind nobody outside the industry ever hears about, because there's no drama in a crop nobody wants, just a farmer doing sums that don't add up and wondering what happens next. So he built the buyer himself. If nobody wanted the barley, he'd turn the barley into something people did want. That barley became Hawkstone. A brewery that started as a way to get rid of surplus grain is now, by the Sunday Times' own rankings, the fastest growing company in the entire southwest of England. Sales of nearly £45 million in a single year, growing at an average of over 120% annually, 3 years running. Sit with the distance between those two facts. A crop with no buyer and a business now selling in 9 European countries, moving millions of pints, built entirely off the back of grain that couldn't find a home the ordinary way. Now put the pub back next to it, and the picture changes completely. The pub loses £8,500 in 4 months, and everyone involved treats that like the headline. But the pub was never really the business. The pub is the room people walk into. It's where a stranger from 3 counties over ends up holding a pint of Hawkstone in her hand for the first time, at a table she waited weeks to book, in a building she drove an hour to find. She doesn't leave thinking about the parking. She leaves remembering the beer. That's the trade. Eat the loss where people can see it, at the till, at the table, in the number his accountant reads out on camera. Bank the profit somewhere they never think to look, in a brewery that grew out of a crop nobody wanted, now doing £45 million a year and expanding across a continent. You can't put somebody's first taste of Hawkstone at a table they queued weeks for on a spreadsheet. But every farmer who's ever watched a supermarket squeeze their margin down to nothing understands exactly why a man with Clarkson's platform might choose to lose money in the one place everyone's watching, so he can make it back in the one place nobody is. So here's where it actually lands. A pub that's fully booked every single day of the week is losing money, and the man who owns it isn't panicking, isn't raising prices, isn't cutting corners. He's absorbing £47,000 a month in parking staff, because the alternative, turning people away, costs him something a spreadsheet was never built to measure. The umbrellas he refused to buy, the waitresses who walked after one day, the 104 stolen glasses in a single Sunday. None of it reads like failure once you see what it's actually evidence of. It's evidence of demand nobody built the infrastructure for fast enough, sitting on top of a business that would rather bleed slowly at the front door than shrink at the back. And behind all of it, quietly outgrowing everything else he owns, is a beer that exists purely because nobody wanted to buy his barley in 2020. That's not a pub story anymore, if you think about it properly. It's a story about what it actually looks like from the inside when something starts working too well, too fast, and the person running it decides the visible loss is worth exactly what it's quietly buying somewhere else. If you've ever built something that got more popular than you were ready for, you already know the feeling I've just spent the last few minutes describing. Tell me what that felt like from where you were standing, in the comments. I'd genuinely like to know. And if this is the kind of story you want more of, the ones where the numbers say one thing and the truth underneath says something completely different. But this channel give you correct and right more information of Jeremy Clarkson life. Subscribe to Soil Vanta and hit the bell so the next one find you.